I don't know if you've ever watched SpongeBob before, but Plankton was always after something called the secret formula from Mr. Krabs.
Yep.
That's kind of where that name originated from, because the reason he was going after that secret formula wasn't just for the formula's sake, but because that was the secret ingredient to the success that he saw with the entire Krusty Krab. It's on a funny level, but at the same time, that is what a formula is. That's the secret sauce that helps somebody operate their business successfully. Yeah, operate their business successfully on the show, but in the same thing in real life.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the More Than a Side Hustle podcast. I am your host. Well, I'm one of your hosts, Anthony. I'm not joined here by Janoka today, but we are joined here by an excellent guest. This is a close friend, Marlon. I know he's we're going to be talking about car rentals. A lot of car rental business owners out there, but we got a lot of side hustlers out there who are in the car rental business, but he has actually scaled a business. We talk about how to build something outside your 9 to 5. He's actually built a business outside of his 9 to 5 and not just a side hustle. So without no further ado, here's our guest, Marlon. What's going on, sir?
What's going on, Ant? Glad you can have me on today, man.
Yes. And before we even get into everything car rental, how many, we'll start there. So How many cars do you have in your network right now?
25.
25 cars?
Yeah.
Where the hell do you park those cars at?
That's always one of the first questions that people ask about.
Yeah.
So, that was a whole journey in itself, because when we first got started, we had parked all of our cars in front of my dad's cul-de-sac.
Okay.
So, my dad lives in a neighborhood that has a cul-de-sac, and we used to park all of our cars there. It used to be 5 though back at that time. Mm-hmm. But then as we started getting to 10 to 15, we're like, whoa, where are we going to park these cars at? So we started talking we actually had an account manager on Turo, and he was talking about different locations that can actually help us get more traffic to our cars as we park them in those locations. They make costs, but you can make up the cost with delivery fees. So the airport was one of our first ones that we started parking at. We parked at a parking garage that's across the street from the airport that actually takes on Turo hosts. Okay. And so we started parking a lot of our cars over there. And then we learned also from that same account manager that there's different hotspots all around the city. And so there's some areas that you may get more traffic into than others. The airport was one major hub, but he says in inner city, you can get a lot of traffic. So we actually started parking some of our cars in the parking garage down there instead as well.
Okay. So that we tried it a little bit with the car rental thing, and before we start anything, our goal is all right, how can we turn this into a business, right? We were just all right, we're going to put the car on Turo. We had an extra car. We're going to rent it out for some dollars. And it worked for us because we were able to pay off our first car, putting it on the car rental platform. Yep. But we didn't understand the game. So you've been in this game for how many years now? About
almost 3 years fully now. So we started back in August of 2020. So It's pretty much been 3 years to the day now.
So 3 years in. What made you get started in car rentals? Because I know you own real estate and you had the 9 to 5. So what made you get started in car rentals?
So getting started in car rental was just one of many things that I was trying to get started into back then. So back in 2020, I had just finished grad school. So I just finished as a mechanical engineer in grad school. And I finally got back into just moving back home to Houston. And my goal was, because you've been on a podcast, so you already know that we were bringing on different guests that were doing all these different businesses. Yep. And I had a strong entrepreneurial seizure at that point. Think about this. I'm in grad school because I think we started the podcast in 2019. So I still had a year left before I graduated. All this time, Alex is as we continue to interview different guests on the podcast, Alex is getting new ideas. Alex is my co-host, for anybody who doesn't know. But he's getting different ideas about what business to get started into. And I'm just man, I can't do anything. I'm stuck here in Indiana. So I'm itching at this point. I want to try something. And so once I got back from grad school and came back home to Houston, that's when I told my dad, I'm about to start a lot of stuff. I'm just doing different businesses and trying to figure out what is going to be my thing. So in addition to just the rental cars, I also was try to do pest control business. I tried to do
I didn't know that.
You don't know a lot of them. I started listening about tow trucking. I started doing stock options. I started doing mobile homes. We had bought a mobile home, actually. Yep. I started studying how to T-shirt sales. All these different things were happening at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So this is all back in August of 2020. Not just rental car was one of many at the beginning. Wow. So that's why, the story about the morning meetup and stuff. That's why that was so important for me, because this is typically something that happens for the beginning entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. The beginning entrepreneur, because you don't have any experience in any particular industry or any particular business, everything looks like opportunity for you. But the problem is that most things are distractions because you haven't focused on anything. So for us with the rental car, we got started, like I said, for all the other business too, because of the podcast. So just to answer your question, like we interviewed some guy, one of the guys, you actually know him, Brian Robinson, interviewed him, and he talked about the rental car business and how he was operating on hire car back then. Talking about like it was pretty passive. He was able to make some income just from renting out his car, and it just pays him. I'm like, that sounds doable. Now, I think I can do that.
What made that stand out over everything else? I mean, it's obviously the more sexy choice with the car rentals, but what made that stand out over the other things?
It just seemed like it was simplified enough to where it's like anybody can do it, especially because of his model, which hire cars like the long-term renters, where you list a car and then you rent it out, and then it may not come back for 2 or 3 months. We've had that before too. Like, so we actually have somebody right now been renting our car for 3 months, like, and it just keeps on going. So that does happen quite often, depending on who your target audience is. But me and my dad were both talking about it, and like, man, that seems very, very doable. So when I got back home, like I said, getting back from grad school and coming back home, I just told him one day, I said, man, I'm about to go buy me a car. And his personality has always been somebody that says, I want to do something, or I was just thinking about that, but never actually did it. So that's always been his thing. It's like, man, I was thinking about doing that. So he would always like joke about that. But I told him I'm about to go buy a car. And as soon as he heard me say that, he says, hold on, we've been talking about this. I'm going with you. So like I want to join in on this journey. Wherever that leads us, I want to join in on it because I know that this can be something great.
And that was both you and your dad?
Yep. So we both went to go buy our first car. It was a Nissan Sentra. It was 2016 Nissan Sentra, just back in 2020. I learned really quickly he was the negotiator of us too. Like, he negotiated the deal down, got us a great deal for our first car. We got listed on hire car the same day. Same day we actually got our first booking, a request. I say request because we missed it.
What does that mean?
We got somebody requested the car, but we didn't know anything about the platform. So we actually end up missing the overall request. And I saw it like maybe a couple hours later, and I saw that we had missed it because she had found somebody else. I feel like that. It was like we were supposed to be going on a date. She found somebody else. That's how I felt. So I reached it back out to her. I'm like, hey, do you still want to rent a car from us? She's like, no, I'm good already. I found another car.
Yeah.
So my heart is hurt now.
So they request what platform? This was Turo?
It's on hire car.
What's the difference between hire car and Turo?
Yeah, I got to mention that too. So on hire car, they primarily target Uber and Lyft drivers, people who are going to use your car as a business. Versus Turo, I would say Turo and tourists. Like, Turo really targets people who are traveling. Like, so you got to understand that different platforms target different target audiences. Okay. Turo also targets maybe like the general, like the local person that's trying to get from point A to point B. Like, maybe their car may be in a shop and they're just trying to get to and from work or something like that. So they target the general population in that regard, but hire car is specific towards Uber and Lyft drivers. So back then, that's all we knew was hire car. We didn't even know about Turo until 2021. Okay. But we listed our car on there, missed that first renter. Then literally it took 10 days for us to get our next request. Ooh. So I'm already thinking, man, this is the wrong thing. I'm so mad we did this. Like, I'm starting to get to like a panic. Because
if you have this car and it's not rented out,
you had to pay a car note and insurance on the car that I bought this for the reason of making money with it, but now it's a liability. So actually we ended up calling hire car and said, hey, can we get our car rented out? Like, what can we do to get our car rented? Because it hasn't been moving. Like, we got the request that first day, but we haven't gotten one since. And they tell us, okay, we're gonna get your car marketed to help you get it rented out. Literally that same day, we got somebody else that requested. It was his first time on the platform. Never forget him. His name was Mike, and this is our first time renting. This is his first time renting from somebody, and we met him at the local theater. Like, that's probably like 10 minutes from the house. We introduced ourselves and everything. He rented the car for about 5 days straight, and then the crazy thing is that when he brought it back, we got paid out, and I was like, that was so easy to make that money. We never made money that easy in our life before. So that was like the epiphany moment that said that this is something that can really do some good for us. Because I think I forgot the exact amount that we made, but it was already enough to cover the car note. So that was anything else after this, we already paid the car note. Now you're just making cash.
The rest of it is like cash flow, is profit at that point. So he rented the car for 5 days. You wasn't worried that something would happen. You was just like, he has my car. He's a stranger.
Ignorance was bliss for sure. I wasn't even worried about it. It's like, because this wasn't even my personal car. This was a car that we bought from a dealership for the sake of renting it out. So we already learned from Brian Robinson back then about the different things that we can do, like to mitigate our risk. even though we didn't follow too much stuff because we didn't even have a tracker in that car at that time. Like all the little things that we supposed to do, we weren't doing anything like that. All the messaging had nothing. Just talk to him, and just he seemed like a cool dude overall. So a couple days later, after he rented out, we noticed that the car wasn't moving again. But he actually came back and said, "Hey, y'all still got the car? I want to rent with y'all again." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, for sure." Another 5 days.
Okay.
And that became a pattern. So he actually, I think him alone paid us out like $2,600 between the months of August through December of 2020. Like that was one of our mainstream renters that probably rented with us like 10 times throughout that entire year.
And he's paying your car note over that time too.
Right.
He's paying your car note. He's paying your, at that point.
Oh yeah,
everything.
Exactly. So like that's when we learned the value of like getting repeat renters and really having good customer service, because we learned that he can go to Enterprise for the same car. He can go to Hertz, Avis, anybody like that. He can go to any other hire car host, but he's coming to us directly because of the relationship, because he respects like what we're doing. He appreciates how we treat him. So that's where we learned the value of like treating the customer right, like putting the customer first and making sure that they get what they need, or really giving them an experience as opposed to just the car itself.
Yeah, I think that was one of the biggest things that a lot of people have to learn in business. Is not, you don't make money from that first customer. You make the money for the return customers. You make the money off the reviews. You make the money like long term by treating that person right. Yep. So after you get that first customer, in my mind, it's like, all right, this thing starting to work. Now it's like, all right, do I get another car? Or at what point do you decide, all right, I want to scale up to 25 cars? Because to me, that's real. That's not luck, but that's like, all right, let me test this out a little bit longer. But at what point do you start to say, let me scale this up a little bit more?
So it took, first of all, having to realize that we were doing too much, because like this is around the time where I got into the morning meetup. This is back in December of 2020. And I never forget, there was one day where he had started talking about the importance of focusing on one thing. Yeah. And he pretty much pegged me, like it wasn't even directed at me, but you know, everybody in the group just feel like they're talking to them. This is me in that situation where he's like, all these entrepreneurs that's just starting out think that they can build a business and everything all at one time. And that was my thought process back then, was multiple streams of income. If I can get multiple streams of income coming in, that's the key to success. The problem is that these are all different industries. So I have no business experience, but I'm trying to build multiple businesses to become successful at the same time. It's very unlikely, and what it becomes, instead of multiple streams of income, it becomes multiple streams of work. And that's what it was for me. It was nothing but work and no income. So after looking at all the different businesses that we were doing, I realized that the rental car is the only one that was actually making money. The mobile home, somebody had moved in, but then they just uprooted and left like a couple months in. It's like, so now we're paying for that one. All the other stuff is like they've been losing money or just ideas and not actually doing anything with them. So it's like, let's focus in on just one thing. Which one is working right now? The rental car was working. So it's like, so at the end of 2020, I told my dad, let's actually make a goal for 2021 and say that let's go for 10 cars this year. That's my goal. Let's get 10 cars this year.
We're not going to 5. We're going straight to 10.
Yes, let's 10x where we're at so far.
What made you want to go so big on that? Because I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a little scary when it comes to stuff like that. I'm like, all right, let's go to 2. I can't say, hold on a second. Nah. I'm going to take it. I'm not going to jump into 10. I might have did 5 for the first year. But what made you say, let me just go 10 all in?
Because I've always believed that whatever I lock into, I can really like scale it up. I can become one of the best at whatever I do. That's always been my mentality, or always my personality, that whatever I do lock into, I'm going to become really good at it, just because I'm going to give so much intentional effort and consistent effort, more so than anybody else. And so I know that 10 is possible, especially after seeing, I think around that time also, I was seeing other people and how they were doing like way more. Like they may have had like 30 cars. I think Matty J had like 30 cars at that time. I think Pushman Mitch was another person I saw. He had quite a bit. So I'm like, we can do at least 10. Come on. Okay. We can do that.
They can do it. I can do it.
Exactly. So let's go for 10. And so, yeah, after making that resolution for 2021, we went to work right away. So I pretty much eliminated all the other things that I was doing before, and I started focusing in on just the rental car business. And me and my dad started pretty much financing cars within our personal name. That's all we knew at the time, just financing cars in your personal name. He got like 6 cars in his personal. I ended up getting like 4 in mine. Okay. And that's how we just scaled up. So that was our 10 right there. But that was across maybe a few, like, I think by August or September, we hit that number of 10.
So from January to about August.
Yeah. So we had already hit 10 cars by that point. I'm like, man, my goal was too small.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit more than half of the year. So you probably could have did maybe 15, 20 if you wanted to.
That was my thought process exactly. I was like, man, because of where I set my goal at, that's where we end up hitting there. But that was also our cap. Our goal was too small back then, so I'm like, we could actually did more if I had set a bigger goal. So that's where my entire thought process had changed moving forward from there. It's like, man, you need to set bigger goals if you want to accomplish more. But ultimately, what I did learn from that experience, though, at the same time, is that personal credit route, that has a limit anyway. So we wouldn't have been able to get much past 10, at least the way we were going, because you can't finance all these cars in your personal forever.
How many do you think what's the normal that people could do?
There's no cap.
Okay.
But it's conditional.
Okay.
So what Matty J did, if anybody knows his story, he actually financed I think over 30 cars, I think 33 cars in his personal name within a month of each other.
Wow.
So the difference is that when you finance a car in your personal name, it doesn't usually hit your credit until about 30 to 45 days after you've actually financed it.
Okay.
And so because of that, that means that within that time window before they hit your credit, you can get as many cars as you want to in your personal. Like technically, just as long as you continue, like go to different financiers that haven't already financed you already. Like if you continue to go from one to another, you can start financing those cars in your personal, and then you can get them all and just have them all just to run. The issue with that is that once they do all hit,
It's like an avalanche at that point.
Once you get them all on your personal, now you got to look at them and be like, how do I get rid of these out of my personal? So I don't even recommend that strategy, because especially he had a different advantage than other people. What he doesn't talk about, he talked about on our podcast, but he had to use his business that he already had previously in order to finance, order to buy them out of his personal name and put them into his business.
Okay.
But that was because he had a separate business that was already established and successful, that had years of experience, that was able to get a line of credit big enough to buy them all. That's so important. So for anybody that's listening, do not go out and just buy a whole bunch in your personal name and financing them all, because that can put you in a bad financial situation, especially if you want to go buy like a house, you want to finance anything else. I don't recommend that route.
Yeah, you see, I mean, not just to harp on him, but you see everyone saying go buy all these 10, 15 cars.
Yeah.
But no one's telling you that, you actually need an established business. You need established credit. You need established credit history in that business name versus just putting everything in your personal.
Right, because what a lot of people try to do is they will start their business at the same time as they're buying these cars.
Exactly.
But no financial company is going to finance this new business with a line of credit big enough to buy your cars, because they're like, you're a brand new business. How do I? It's like a new baby going to a lender and saying, hey, can you lend me $1 million?
Yeah.
Why would
that gonna happen?
What? Like, you got a Lonnie downstairs. What bank is going to do that? So you had to establish yourself as a business and show that you're credible first, and show that you're profitable without the bank, for the bank to give you money.
Okay.
And so, like, for just a general rule of thumb, usually a bank is looking for 2 years of experience in order for you profitability and experience for them to like start lending you money, especially in the rental car business, because the rental car business is typically more of a risky industry deemed by the lenders, because they like, okay, I'm about to lend you money to buy a car that you're not even going to drive. You're going to actually have strangers drive it.
Yeah.
I don't trust that so much. So that's why they want you to be seasoned and wait a little bit longer in order to actually start financing you, especially like the normal banks that you may think of, like a Chase or Wells Fargo or something like that. But there are other banks that will start giving you auto loans ahead of time that you can use to like leverage and start building up your fleet through your business. But it's not going to be like 50. It's going to be like maybe 2, 3, or 4 to get started off with.
And let's focus on that too. I don't want to go into the 10, 15. For most people that's watching this, they have a job, and their goal is to start these businesses outside their jobs that's actually scalable based on where they are. Our story is very similar. You want to start slow and kind of work your way versus just going to the very end. So what are some popular banks that people should start with at the very beginning? I got my 9 to 5. I may not have business credit, or I may just have started this business credit. What do you kind of recommend for people to get started in this?
So it's early on. Like, first off, before we even start getting into financing, anything like that, I would say it's important to start off with a plan. I think even before you start figuring out what bank to go to, like, what is your goal for this business? Are you looking to make this a side hustle? And any one of these answers can be correct, but it's all about what you want. If you want to do a side hustle, then understand that you may not care to have all the business building in the same regard as what we have been doing. Because our goal personally is to create a sellable business model. So because of that, we have to make sure we have systems and foundation from day one to be able to operate, even if we bring on employees, even if we want to start franchising into different locations. That was our goal. So that's why all of our actions was dictated based off of that. But you had to figure out, what is it for you? So with that being said, now when you start thinking about like different ways to start getting your first vehicle, you can come in with different ways. You can either come in with cash, you can finance like we did personally, and you can leverage another business if you already have one. So for us, and actually have different strategies than what were present when we first got started.
Okay.
So this would be a free gem for y'all. One person one company that Turo has partnered with is actually called Car Putty.
Okay.
So this is a
Car Putty?
Yes, Car Putty. So this is a financial company that finances a new and seasoned Turo hosts. And so as long as you meet their qualifications, like that's when you can actually get a line of credit for financing as opposed to doing a normal pre-approval. And I actually want to touch on that for a second because there's a big difference between how a pre-approval works versus a line of credit.
Okay.
A pre-approval, this is where you go to a bank and you ask for a pre-approval for an auto loan, just pretty much like asking for a loan from the bank. So you have to run your credit, and you get one loan. You get one opportunity to use this loan. Like if let's say the loan is for $50,000, and you find a car that's for $20,000, you buy that $20,000 car, and that's it. Like you're not going to use the rest of that $30,000 for that one. That you're pre-approved for up to this amount, but you're not going to be able to like buy multiple with that one pre-approval. With a line of credit, it's different. So if I get that same line of credit for $50,000, I can actually use that entire line. So I run my credit one time to get the line of credit. It's like with Car Putty, they give lines of credit out. I run my credit with that for that line of credit, and now it's like a pot. Think about like a money pot where you have $50,000 in the pot, and now you find what cars are there to go after. If you see one for $20,000, you can take money out the pot, buy it for $20,000. But you still have $30,000 left in that pot. So now you can use that. You use the remaining funds in the pot to go buy another car. So now you have two cars that are running at the same time. So say you have one for 20, one for 30, but now you're building credibility with this bank. So instead of you having to go get another pre-approval for more money, after let's say 6 to 12 months, you can talk to the bank and say, hey, I've been doing really good with paying these payments on these first couple cars. Can I increase my line of credit? They look at your financials and say, you know what? Been doing pretty good. I actually will increase it. So they may increase it from 50,000 to 100,000. So now that was without running your credit, because now you're working based off relationships. You're not working based off of your credit anymore, because now they get to see you doing your work. They see that you're making on time payments. Yeah, so that's the key now. Versus a pre-approval, you had to run your credit every single time. Like we've ran our credit, man.
They ran into the ringer.
We've had so many inquiries over the years because we didn't know this type of stuff in the beginning. So that's why I value so much like giving out the right information, because you get to bypass so many of the mistakes that we were making in the very beginning of our journey.
And speaking about just finding the right information, how do you still continue to stay knowledgeable in this space with so many changes, changing market, things like that?
So this is ironic. Just a couple of days ago, I was at this event called the International Car Rental Show. And so this is primarily for people who aspire or are already independent operators. So understand that.
And what's an independent operator?
I'm going to talk about it. So understand that like Turo and HireCar, these are called rideshare platforms.
Okay.
So rideshare platforms are for people who are just trying to figure out like, can I make some side hustle income or anything like that? But if you want to take this into like an actual business model, like where you are like creating an entire operation, then you may want to step into like the independent operator space. So for independents, this is people who rent out cars directly to the consumer. They don't have any middleman platform that's regulating the connection between the renter and the owner. So now it's like you're going out and marketing and finding the customers for yourself, and you rent out to them directly. The benefits of it is that, number one, most importantly, I should want to say, you don't have anything that can stop you from operating your business. So let's say Turo shut. Matter of fact, remember Instagram had shut down for one day before. Yeah. Like it's just like whatever happened to it, like it shut down for a few hours of time. People quickly realized that all of their audience was on Instagram, but they don't have any audience for themselves. So that means that their income was stopped immediately. That same thing can happen to any platform, to any software, like Turo, HireCar, Get Around, some of the rideshare platforms, like even Airbnb. All these different apps, they could all like fall off the face of the earth at some point. So if that happens, what will happen to your business? that's why I say, what is your goal with it? Is it a side hustle or is it going to be business? If it's a business, you have to be able to stand tall regardless of what happens to the whatever happens to the platform that you're operating on. So as an independent, you're running out directly to consumer, and so now you just have to. Now it's just a different process that you have to learn about in regards to how to operate that way.
That's super important, because when even kind of related to the cleaning business, we tell people, it's okay to start on like Thumbtack, Angie's List, stuff like that, but they're controlling your income. We just literally went to an event, and the gentleman was there talking about Airbnbs, and he's like, you don't want to be on that platform forever. You're really trying to grow a business, because what happens if those platforms go down? So you're mentioning the importance of like managing your own platform, managing your own customers. So I guess, how do you get customers if you're not on those platforms would be my question.
Mm-hmm. So now you have to transition your thinking now.
Okay.
So instead of you thinking, I'm about to go put my car on a platform and they just market for me and they just bring me customers. Now you have to think about who needs a car. Just a simple question. Who needs my car? And so from there, now you can start thinking about, once I know who needs it, now I can figure out where do they hang out at? Like, where do those people hang around? Like, where do they go to? So in our case, I'll just give you one example. Somebody who needs a car may be somebody who just got into a wreck. Okay. Somebody got into a wreck. So somebody may have hit them. Not even their fault. But now they need a car to get from from home to work and back. So where are they going to go to first in order to get their car fixed? They're going to go to a body shop.
Mechanic, yep.
So this body shop, mechanic, or repair shop, whatever you want to call it, you can go be business partners with them. You can let them know, hey, I own a fleet of cars, and I'm looking to continue to provide my services to people who need cars. In exchange, I actually will start working with y'all. Whenever our car gets damaged, we can bring the car to you, and you can be the one that does the repairs. But anytime you have a customer that comes in that needs a car for the next week or two, just send them our way. We'll make sure we take care of them. That's just one way that you can provide value to the body shop in exchange for them providing you with some service as well. That builds a mutual relationship that allows you to continue to get repeat business just in that regard. And these people keep the cars for however long their car's in the shop. It may be 2 weeks, it may be a month, it may be 2 months. And so that's like just how we were talking about hire car earlier with people keeping your cars a long time. Those people need cars too. If you can find a way to get into different groups that have Uber and Lyft drivers, you can rent to them directly. You don't need hire car to do that. That's so true. Like I've seen people do that, like in Facebook. They have a lot of different Facebook groups for Uber and Lyft drivers. That's another opportunity. So there's all different ways about people who need cars. It's just about you figuring out where do they hang out at. Facebook groups, body shops, and there's plenty more just besides those, but those are just some examples.
Do you recommend giving the body shops like any incentive? Like, why would they go with you versus going like, I don't know what other platforms there are out there, but why would they go with you versus doing anything else on their own?
So typically they don't have, your value proposition is that they usually don't have anything else.
Oh, like there you go.
They may just send them over to, they'd be like, yeah, so in the meantime, you may go to Hertz or something like that.
Yep.
But now they get to offer another service that they know is reliable, because they don't know what's going to happen with Hertz Enterprise or whatever. And a lot of customers say that they may not be able to even be approved with Enterprise for one reason or another. So you offer another opportunity for their customer to have somebody reliable to rent their car out to while they're being worked on. Okay,
that's actually a really good point, because I remember when my car is funny. Oh no! Before I even tell you, I am curious. I had my car on. Coincidentally enough, I took my car off a Turo. This is my personal car, my car that I was driving for all of these years. I took it off a Turo. I got to the point where I raised the price to like $90 a day. And it was still getting rented out. Huh?
What kind of car was that again?
The one outside, 2014 Infiniti.
Okay.
The red one.
Yeah,
so I got it up to like $90 a day, and I took it off because I just didn't want it on the platform anymore. Mm-hmm. I put it back on the platform. I don't remember why. It got into an accident. I put it on the platform for one day, it got into an accident. Okay. So now, speaking of body shops, mechanics, what is the craziest story you have in regards to this? Just getting into an accident or anything like that? Because I'm curious, because this is my baby, but these aren't your babies, I guess. But
yeah, nah,
we
don't have any babies, thankfully. Like, we don't have none of all of our cars are assets for us that we looked at to make us money. So none of them have any physical attachment for sure. But this one couldn't be repaired. Like the craziest story. But one of our cars actually, and we have multiple stories, so it can be in any one of them. But, but also understand before I even get into
the lesson too from it.
I'm gonna definitely tell lessons on these too. But all of our stories are like one-offs. Okay. So usually we show those on social media because we want to showcase how to handle these things when they happen. Most importantly,
if you got 25 cars, you got 25 one-offs, exactly. I guess.
No, so yeah, anything can happen, but you just want to be prepared for them. So we've had like 1,500 trips, but we only have maybe 5 to 10 stories that we can like really point at as like, yo, this is a crazy one right here.
Okay.
So it doesn't happen frequently, but they do happen. So you need to just be prepared for them when they do happen. So this one was our Kia Forte. This one was a car that we had been renting out since. This is actually our 4th car that we had purchased. This is back early in 2021. We purchased this car like in March 2021. And so I think in around August or September of 2022, it was on a rental. It was actually August because I remember exactly what was happening. We were going, like, this is me and my family. We were dropping my sister off at UTSA. She was getting ready to start college at UTSA. I remember on a ride back, I got a notification on my phone saying that the tracker had been disconnected.
And what's a tracker?
A GPS tracker. So we have GPS trackers in all of our cars that show us where the car is located at, and we can actually shut the car down if anything is going on with the desk. Like, let's say a guest steals a vehicle, or if we have our cars in a remote location, we can have the car shut down and meaning inoperable. Nobody can start the car even with the key.
Okay.
So that's the purpose of GPS tracker. Every single one of our cars has one. You must have one if you're running it in this business. If you don't, you didn't learn from me.
There you go.
Like, for sure.
I got a story for that one too.
You didn't learn from me.
I learned after though.
You're right. So we had our tracker in the car, but we got a notification. This is like 12:50 a.m. too. We got a notification saying that it was been disconnected. Oh. So that means, for me, that meant one of 3 things. Number 1, the battery died.
Okay.
That rarely happens, but it could.
It could.
Number 2, the guest is still in the car and they're tampering with it. So if I don't hear from her in the morning, I know it's from her. I know she's the one that stole it.
Okay.
Or number 3, somebody else stole the car and she'll be calling me in the morning because she doesn't know where the car is at. One of those 3 happened. So in the morning, around 10 a.m., I get a call.
So hold on.
Go ahead.
You're not worried from 12 to the morning? You're not like, all right, let me handle this now?
The reason I'm not is because I know how we're going to navigate any of those 3.
Okay,
just depending on what happens. So I'm just waiting to see what's the result so I know how to navigate it.
Got it.
So
I wouldn't have been able to sleep. I'm just going to say that.
If it's your baby, then yeah, for sure. But I know we know how to navigate it. So that's the key to having systems. I can be poised in a situation because I know that we have systems in place to be able to handle it whatever happens. So in the morning at 10 a.m., we get a call from the guest saying, hey, I don't see the car. I'm like, oh, shoot. Okay, well, option number 3 is what happened. Somebody stole it. So I tell her immediately we'll report that the car has been stolen to Turo, and then we'll move on from there. Just to bring her mind down. It's ironically because she asked me the same question. You're not nervous about this? I'm like, no, don't worry. We have systems in place that's gonna handle it. So like I said, we knew right away because of the tracker.
Okay.
But this was the thing for us is that I knew that we bought a really good deal on this car. So even if we don't find it, I know that when we get paid out for, like, if it's a total loss claim, I know when we get paid out, it's actually going to be a surplus for us anyway.
What does that mean?
I'm going to get into it because I actually want to get back to the story, and then I'm going to talk about, like, what the resultant was for us as far as getting paid out. So we filed a police report that same day. And after filing a police report, they said that, yeah, we'll be looking for the vehicle. We'll see if we can find it or anything like that. One day later, we get a call from the police saying, hey, we found your car.
Okay, that's good.
They said, yeah, so it's in a storage facility right now. You can go over there to go pick it up. I'm like, oh, finally, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm going to go get it, and then we'll take it back to our location and keep it moving. I get to the location for the storage facility, talk to the lady that's at the front desk and say, hey, we're looking to get our Kia Forte. It came in this morning or something. She was like, oh, that's y'all's car?
Wait, what type of storage facility is this?
This is like what was it called? Just a record facility, basically like for like a lot of abandoned cars or like damaged.
When you said storage, I'm thinking like stuff you take from your house and you leave it in storage.
No. This is
okay. That's
like a tow facility. That type.
Okay,
yeah, my bad. Yeah.
Oh, that's even worse.
So like a tow facility. She's like, oh man, that's your car. They got that one.
Ooh.
I'm like, what you mean?
Why should he stop him?
What you mean? I was like, okay, so where's the car at? She says, it's just down there to the left. So I'm like, all right, cool. Let me walk down here and see if we can find a car. This me and my cousin, we walking down the aisle to see, just looking at all the other abandoned cars.
Yeah.
I'm like, I do not see this car. Where is it at? Like we got made it all the way to the end of the storage facility. Still didn't see the car. So I'm like, bro, okay. I wasn't paying attention enough. Let me look a little closer. So we start walking back the other way. Now we're looking to the right. Like, I see it. That looks like our car right there. I remember saying that. That's it. That looks like it. The problem is that the trunk is missing.
The trunk was missing?
The trunk is missing. I said the trunk is missing and the taillights are out. So I started walking around to the front of the car, and I realized that
the trunk latch, the hood of the trunk?
The hood of the trunk is missing, like the whole trunk. So you can see inside the trunk because they took the trunk latch off altogether.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, so I see. And then the taillights are also not there.
Okay.
But the wheels are there, the bumper's there. Okay, cool. We got a little something to work with. I get around to the side. I'm like, okay. It looks decent on the side. It's like nothing missing. Like the wheel's still there. I get to the front though. The front, everything was gone. Engine, transmission, hood, headlights, catalytic converter. This is a true business operation. Whoever took this car,
they knew what they were doing.
They knew exactly what they was doing because they stripped this car down to pretty much bare bones skeleton. And basically, we called Turo, sent pictures of it, and said, yeah. That car gone. You're not fixing this one up. So after they saw the pictures, they're like, yeah, that's a total. If there's a definition of total, that one's done. So now the next process is the total loss process, where we're talking with Turo, and they're going to pay us out based on what the current value of that vehicle is. So now going back to the story from earlier about knowing, this is why my biggest lesson from all of this is buying good deals. Like I preach that over and over and over within our community, because when you buy a good deal, you don't have to worry about the cash flowing during the rental, and you don't have to worry about paying to sell a car, because usually people, if you buy a bad deal, then you're gonna on the back end, usually the car is depreciated in value, and when you sell it, you usually are underwater on your payment. Okay. I knew for this one we bought a stellar deal, and because my dad negotiated it as usual, like he was negotiating really good. And on top of that, just our surplus came because of the market condition. Like the market was going up in used car market. So any of our cars, we know that we have a pretty good upside on those. Okay. So if there's ever a total loss, we're going to profit out. So it ended up being better than what we thought, because on this case, I think we owed $9,000 on that car. The current valuation of that car was at $17,000 or $16,000. Ooh. So Turo said, all right, so based on minus your deductible, you'll get paid out the $16,000. You'll pay off your car note, and we keep the remainder. So our car note was $9,000. We got paid out $16,000. So then we paid off the car note. We pocket the rest of the $7,000.
Ooh, so you won on that one.
Won big time on that one because somebody had stole the car and totaled it out. Like, all right, well, that's why I say we had something that was in place regardless. Like we knew that we bought good deal on the front end. We had tracker in the car to know where it was at least. If they didn't take the tracker out, we couldn't have tracked it ourselves to get it back. We've done that on several occasions where somebody steals it. I'm like, okay, we'll just go get it back. Get it towed back to us. So we've done that many different times. But even without it, file a police report, let Turo know. And then, like, that's a good thing about operating on Turo is that they handle a lot of the claims process. Okay. That's why I say the difference between Turo and independent, you really have to know what Turo does that you're not doing if you're going to be an independent. Okay. Like the claims process and marketing are two of your biggest things as an independent operator. But when you're on Turo, like they're going to handle all of the claims process for you. So that's a big benefit of operating on Turo, which is why I do recommend at least starting there so you can learn what goes into it before you actually do step out on your own as an independent operator. So
you mainly that worked out in your favor because you got the right car, you paid the right price, and you had your systems in place. When we're talking about building, a business, this is what it takes. Right. So for anyone that's watching, how do you even know for the car buying process? Mm-hmm. You go to Hertz, you go to, I don't know, wherever you buy cars at. How do you know if you're getting a deal, or how do you even know how to negotiate, what to negotiate down to on that?
So typically, before you even buy your first car, you need to know what car that you're going to be looking for in the first place. Okay. So I always tell people that you have to do your market research before you ever even step foot into a dealership. Because any car can be a good price car, but it could be the wrong car for your market, and it won't matter anyway. Let's say if I'm going for a Chevy Corvette, and let's say Montana, they may not be driving those out there. So I may get a stellar deal on it. I may buy it for $30,000. That's a stellar deal for a Chevy Corvette. But nobody's going to rent it still because nobody's looking for that car.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then I bought the wrong car for my market. So it's all about making sure that you know, first of all, what cars are prevalent in your market. That's going to come from like logging on to Turo, logging on to Hire Car, whatever platform you want to rent on, and figuring out who's renting in this market and what are they renting. So there's a thing called All-Star hosts on Turo, meaning that there's like different tiers. So there's like regular hosts and all-star hosts. There's also power hosts, but it doesn't showcase that on the platform. So you'll see all-star hosts on the platform though. So when you see an all-star host, that means that they've been doing this for a minute. They know the right cars to buy for their fleet. They've been operating on this platform long enough to know like the daily operation. So instead of you trying to reinvent the wheel, just see what the other people are doing. All-star hosts are people who've been doing it. So you can see what kind of cars do they have. Which ones have the most rentals successful rentals already? Because it tells you that. It tells you this car has been rented 32 times or 50 times. The more rentals a car has, the more likely it is that car is a high demand car in that market. Okay. So those are the cars I want to go after. So now from there, I need to go and like research those on like within the market, like searching like say Auto Trader, Cars.com. These are like the different vendors that list cars for sale. And like dealerships may list their cars on these platforms in order to get them sold. Okay. So now I'm trying to see what is the best price cars that what are the best prices for these particular cars that I'm going after. Let's say like a Honda Accord as an example. We had one of those in our fleet.
And I love that car.
That's one of my favorite cars in our fleet for sure.
I sold my car. I want that back, man.
Yeah, like that one's one of our most sought after cars in the fleet for sure. Like that one's
dependable,
like, most definitely. God. So we saw that one, and we were trying to figure out who had the best price on them. So when we look on these different platforms, we can filter them out. You can filter them by they actually have different ranges. They say fair price, good price, great price. I just want to see great price vehicles. Okay, I don't want to see sense. That. Yeah, because we just fast forwarding it basically. But if you don't do that, you're going to see that Honda Accord is going to range from $20,000 probably to $35,000 for the same type of year, make, and model. So some people are selling them really high. Some people are selling them for pretty low. But you also got to make sure that you're getting credible dealerships. That's our personal thing. I don't want to go to Auto Boutique. Like that's one of the dealerships that we've seen like in Houston. I'm like, nah.
We got a lot of those in New York, like those mom and pop joints.
I'm not going there. Like I want to find the best price at a credible dealership. And so that's what I'm always looking for personally. So now we can find within that price range where we're going to land at, and that's usually the car that's going to be the best price deal within that for that particular car. Then you can also use platforms like Kelley Blue Book to kind of like compare and verify, is this the current worth of that vehicle? Because if the worth of that vehicle is less than what they have that car priced for, that's your leverage point. You can say, hey, the car is only actually worth this much, so I shouldn't be paying this much for that car. And if they don't come down on it, just understand that there's another car down the street that looks just like it. So don't get attached. I don't want to have any physical attachment to any car, especially not the ones at the dealership. Yeah. There's always another one right down the street.
Yeah, as we're on cars, I know you see a lot of people on social media, and they talk about leveraging. You buy the car, it's your dream car, and you rent it out, and you also drive it. Mm-hmm. So you don't have any like exotics, no Lambos, like why and why not? Or is that one of the goals down the line?
So keep in mind, as like I said, every market is different. Okay. I think a lot of misconceptions may come from different mecca locations that are centrally like that are known for those type of cars. Okay. Like I would say two primary ones would be like Atlanta and Miami. Those markets are huge for exotic cars. So because of that, anybody who's an influencer in those markets, they can advertise driving your dream car, driving the Lambos, driving the Rolls Royces, driving all these types of exotic cars. That doesn't happen in every single market.
You saying nobody's driving a Lambo in San Antonio? Nobody's driving a Lambo in Lower Houston?
And if they are, it's a very small market. Right. Okay. So you have to keep in mind that you're not going to have just constant inflow of clientele coming in for those. Houston, there is a niche for it. Mm-hmm. It's going to be in a different location, and you have to really know that market. You have to even have pull for it. So you can. So for us, we're not targeting those customers. Like we've been targeting people like by the airports. Those airports are pretty common everyday people that's coming into those airports. So what we've learned in our experience is that the economy cars or like the larger like passenger vans, like the SUVs, the minivans, passenger vans, those do really, really well year round. And also keep in mind, I always say this too. All of those, like if you see influencers that's just advertising all their cars, they can advertise for them because they're sitting.
That's true.
Those cars are not rented out right now.
That's true.
We don't usually advertise them because our cars are always moving.
You're probably not getting a Lambo in the wintertime.
Right. So, and understand the seasonality of those cars too. Like when, yes, like you said, in the wintertime, those cars are not going to be moving nearly as much, especially if you're in a cold environment. I really would be cautious about that. And really, if you want to get into that space, study people who are in that space too. Like, cause there's still an area, there's still room for it in different markets, but you really got to understand how to market those cars. You want to get into that space. Cause like I said, we haven't stepped into there because we understand that there's a greater demand in our entire Houston market for the economy cars, the everyday vehicles that people are looking to drive around to get from point A to point B.
No, that's huge because that's one of the things that obviously I got my personal interest in this conversation because I like to learn about these things, and I wanted to know, why weren't we able to take it to that next level, or if we did want to take it to that next level, what would be the steps? Because we got a Sentra downstairs, 2018, has less than 100,000 miles. It drives pretty good, but we're like, all right, well, we didn't understand the business model. Well, we did understand the business model, but we didn't want to take it seriously enough to get to that level. And I want to go back a little bit because early in the conversation we mentioned the amount of cars you're at now, but we kind of stopped at the point where you said you got between that 10. So what made you say, all right, we're at 10 right now. We know, I don't know, maybe you didn't know the end goal was going to be 25, but what did you say? All right, we're going to go from 10 to that next level to building out and automating this business. What does that take?
Man, so that was a great question right there because at the end of 2021, like I said, I want to like 10x my goals all the time. So at that point, I'm like, I want to go for 100 cars.
I'm about to say, that 10x is not 25, but I get it though.
No, I said I want to go for 100 because I think that's still possible. But at that point in time, at the same time, we didn't know how to get more cars. So that was like one of our biggest roadblocks.
And it's still just you and your father?
Yeah, it's just still me and him at this time. But I don't know how to get any more. I'm actually pretty much, I feel like I'm like Chicken Little with my head cut off, like running around like the sky is falling. But I'm saying, how do we get more cars? How do we get more cars? Because we maxed out our personal credit. Don't have any more of that. Our business is still only a year old. So we haven't hit that 2-year mark for where lenders are going to even take us seriously. So we're still waiting for that. At the same time, our cars are starting to get older because these cars, they get miles on them way faster than a normal car that you're driving around just to go to work and back.
Yeah,
like you may see 30,000 miles on a car in 1 year versus 10 to 15,000. So that's the reality of the business. So we had to get rid of these cars sooner or later, but we can't just go finance another one because our credit is still over leveraged, even if we do get rid of one. So at this point, I'm trying to figure out how do we get more. And I heard about this one thing called JV. JV stands for joint venture. And people kept on mentioning like that's another way to get more cars in your fleet. And at that time, I'm like, I'll try anything at this point. But if I'm going to involve anybody else, I need to have some type of like contractual agreement or something to where I'm going to be able to protect myself. Like I'm very detail oriented in regards to stuff like that. I want to make sure that I have something that can help us out in the event that anything happens. But because I don't know about this JV space at all. So around December of 2021, that's where I really started like diving deep to figure out who knows about joint venturing, like who knows about what these partnerships look like. And nobody had that answer. Like people had contracts, quote unquote, but these contracts were like one pagers that said, here's the car, this is the VIN, this is the year, make, and model, and I hope to do good business with you, sign on dotted line. That's basically what the contracts were saying. They had no type of what ifs, they had no type of protection for us in the event of anything. Like it was very, very basic. And I'm like, I can't run a business with that type of contract. Yeah. So at this point, I'm starting to talk to different lawyers, like trying to figure out how do I do what I'm trying to do? Because at this, like I said, we had these 10 cars, but I'm like, they're getting older. We need to get more, but there's no other way besides this partnership strategy. And we actually found a partner too that was looking to give us like 10 cars to start out. And they said, we might run this up to 100 for you if we can make this work. But we need to get this contract. Okay. And so for the next couple months, like I was just building up this contract from scratch with different lawyers. And after about 2 to 3 months of time, finally had it established, and we used it for our first partner. And then from there, I think they ended up giving us 9 cars within a month or two. Can
you explain what joint venturing actually is?
Most definitely. So joint venturing, what we actually learned is we actually learned from one of the lawyers that it's not even a joint venture what we're doing. I'll explain the difference between what we're doing and what joint venturing is. Joint venturing is basically where you have two different entities, like a business and a person, or like business and a person and a business, or two businesses primarily, and they come together to do business with one another under under contractual terms.
Okay.
So think about like KFC and who did KFC use? I forgot. Oh, KFC and Taco Bell.
Okay.
Or think about Baskin Robbins and Dunkin' Donuts. They may come together under one building and do business together. That's a joint venture.
Okay.
So in this case, I'm thinking we're a rental car company. We're partnering with somebody who's like an investor, and then they buy cars for us, and then we run it in our business. Okay. That's what people call joint venture. But we learned from our experience that it's actually called vehicle management, because that partner, they're just an investor. They're not really doing any work. Once they buy the car and add it to our fleet, they are very hands off. They do nothing. Like, so they're not doing any physical work. So that's why it's called vehicle management, where we're pretty much managing their vehicles for them. And we operate the entire business with them, and we have a profit share.
Do they normally have their own businesses, or would it be like, let's just use me and you? So you have you have the business. I don't have a business. I just got a few cars that I rent out.
Yep.
So is that still a joint venture or a vehicle management situation?
So you don't even need the vehicles that you rent out. You can just literally be somebody that has money, cash, or just other spare cars.
Got it.
So any one of those things can allow you to be an investor. And so where you add cars to somebody else's fleet because you don't want to run a business. Like you like, bro, I see you running it, you doing your thing. I don't want to do it though. So instead of me trying to run it myself, I'm gonna give my cars to you, or I'm gonna give you some cash and you go buy a car, and that way you can add a car to your fleet and we just sharing a profit.
Got it.
That's what investors do. Okay. So that's the other side of the vehicle management. So there's me as the operator, then there's investors that we were able to bring on. Like I said, one of them brought us 9 cars by themselves.
Oh wow.
But ultimately we ended up getting 15 cars. Like we went from that 10 to 25 within 1 month. Ooh. And we're able just to scale it up like that. And so like it was an onslaught to the point where we're like, yo, we can't run this by ourselves anymore. It was me and my dad running 10. But at 25, we quickly realized that, no, we need more than just us. Okay. Like we got to scale beyond us. So that was the next stage next phase for us at that point, was figuring out how to scale our entire team operation beyond just where we were.
Did they just invest the capital for you guys to get those other cars, those 10, 15 cars, or did they already have those cars lined up?
No, so like I said, you can leverage credit, cash, or your own spare cars that you have. But for them, they actually already owned a few cars, but they had sold them to go get other ones that matched our market.
And they didn't have any systems, people in place. It was just like, here you go, take this and run this.
Basically, yeah. So that's exactly how it worked out. But they were able to leverage they had also successful businesses that they were able to leverage too. So I think some of them may have been in their personal, but most of them were like through their businesses as well. Okay.
So you get those cars and you're like, all right, you literally just doubled your fleet overnight, and it's still just you and your dad.
Yeah.
And I know you're a great systems and process and procedure person, but there's only so much you guys could do.
Most definitely.
So what is that? How does that business even run at that point?
You don't do anything else but run cars until you find people. This is where I quickly realized that you have to plan for growth before you actually get there. So that was so big for me at this time in life. This is March of 2022. This is last year. So about a year from right where we are right now. But last year I quickly realized, I remember saying a quote. I said, the more I work, the less money we'll make. The more physical labor I do, that's what I said. The more physical labor I do, the less money we'll make. Because I quickly realized that all I was doing now was cleaning cars. Like I was cleaning cars, taking cars to shops to get maintenance done with them, just the operations. So it's not saying that I don't want to do physical labor. It's saying that I can't grow the business. I can't grow this thing anymore because all I'm doing is doing physical labor. So that was my big realization that says I need to bring on other people to do this work, because nobody else is going to go do the growth work. That was the major mindset shift that I had to go through at that time in life. So that's when we started looking for our first employee to bring them on to work for us full time, and saying, you run the cars. That's when the processes and procedures became so important, because all during this time before we got to this point, we were building up SOPs, like the standard operating procedures of how somebody else is supposed to run this operation without us being the ones that do it. So thankfully, because of all that, we were able to bring them in and show them the ropes, pretty much show them the guided step-by-step process, and they were able to operate the business for us while we will operate the cleaning of the cars, the check-ins and check-outs for us, while I continue to figure out other ways to get more.
So how do you manage 25 cars? So it's you, your dad, and you obviously have this new person to help out. How do you manage these cars in terms of day-to-day operations? What does that look like for a business owner perspective?
So as far as managing, it's very important to have good systems, man. Like I just think about all the different the technology or just the organization that we have. So once you get to a certain level, mistakes are magnified if you don't handle them at an early stage. Mm-hmm. So like we even have a spreadsheet that itemizes everything. Like it's actually called our master vehicle inventory, where we itemize all the little details about a vehicle, like ranging from the year, make, and model all the way to the current mileage of it, all the way to the mileage that we plan on selling the car at, all the way to when was the last oil change, the key cards that we have for it, like all these different things to be able to track and maintain those, like just the day-to-day of each individual car. It's also important to keep up with maintenance. So that's why I said like we even have the oil change markers, knowing when that's going to be. So that way, anytime, because the managers or these fleet managers that we hire, they have to report to us every day what the current mileage is of those cars, or at least when the car comes back, report to us what that mileage is. That way we can compare it to what we have in the master vehicle inventory to see this one's due for an oil change, mm-hmm. and we also know what oil we want to get for each individual car. So tracking all these things and keeping them organized becomes very important as you start scaling up.
So my mind automatically goes to, where's every car at? You got 25 different cars at 25 different locations. Some of them may still be in the state. Some of them may be, I don't know if you do out-of-state rentals, but even just that perspective, how do you even know where the cars are every day?
I think that's why the GPS trackers are so important.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have those, then yes, I've actually heard, I heard a story at the International Car Rental Show where he said it was like one of the big wigs. Like these people are doing deals at a whole nother level, by the way. When I say that show, that is people like the Enterprise and Hertz and Avis show up to that show. Okay. Like just to give you like a glimpse at like how big this is. One of the guys said, I think they had bought like 65,000 cars into their fleet, and like 50,000 of them didn't have any trackers in them, and they were all out and about, like because they had a bunch of investors that put in money to get those cars, and it was a very embarrassing thing to say, yeah, we don't know where 50,000 of our cars are at. Wow. So that's why I said mistakes are magnified at scale, so you don't want to get to that point for sure. Let's start with 25. Let's start with.
Do you see yourself going to that level?
It just depends, because I know that there's it's really just access to information. I think that's something that I feel that we can do, but it's going to take time more so than anything else. And I'm trying to figure out just the right resources that we need to connect with now in order to get to that level.
You mentioned a lot of gems in this conversation. What is, let's say, 2 things that you wish you knew before you guys started? You mentioned the tracking and all of that stuff. Like they could go and find that out now. But what is one thing you wish you knew before you got started in this car rental game?
Man, that's a great question. So I think one of the major things I wish I would have known back then is how to operate as a business owner and make decisions that are necessary. So
what do you mean by that?
I know I'm gonna go deeper into this. So I think we hired maybe 3 people early on. That was a thing that 3 people when we had those 25. We only needed 1. So I would say for anybody who's looking to get into it, just scale slowly. Like they don't want to dive in with too many people too early, because understand that your people, while they are an asset, they are also a liability on paper. And so there were so many things that we did not know about how to operate as an independent. And this is like very important for anybody who's looking to get into independent space. Because we don't know those things, we had to now go through the lessons, and lessons take time, essentially. Like we had to learn about financial statements. We had to learn about how to get the proper commercial insurance. We had to undo some things that we have done with previous insurance in order to now be eligible for the new insurance. All of these things that we did took time. And so that all came at a cost for us. And so that's one of my biggest lessons now for people is just, and also, like I said, like you were asking, if I can tell myself anything different from the past, it would be just like really having that solidified plan and knowing how to make decisions, such as you may have to scale back on your employees way sooner, like maybe within a couple months if you don't see things going the way that you want them to. So that's like a big lesson for me.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's one of the challenges you face in business and knowing which direction to go.
Yeah.
And right now, you and your dad are at this level where you understand the game. You understand, number one, you understand just being on those platforms, and you're understanding it from the independent level. Where do you guys kind of see yourself going in this car rental space? I know we mentioned maybe not going to that 65,000 cars in your fleet level,
Right.
but what's next for you guys as you scale to that next level?
So we're actually taking a moment to regroup and really build out that independent space. So if we want to continue going in the independent route, I said that I told my dad this. I said we built out the Turo model so well. Like I actually asked my employees. I said, how well do you think we run the Turo operation? She said 10 out of 10. Then I said, how well do you think we run an independent operation? What number do you think she said?
I'd say 7, 8.
So I guess by me knowing how new we are into that area, she said a 3.
Ooh.
I said I think it's a 2 or a 1.
Well, that's good that you have someone that's going to explain
Yeah.
to you and keep it real with you.
Yeah, I appreciate her for saying that too, because I know that there's a lot of things that we hadn't like really solidified. That's because of the standard operating procedures. I'm telling you, that's why I'm so big on those. Like if you have standard operating procedures for the offline space or like the independent operation space, it'll be a 10 out of 10 as well. The problem is that we started going into it after we had already brought on the employees, so we're trying to learn it as we're also trying to teach it, and it's very difficult to do both. So like because she's answering questions that I don't even know the answer.
Yeah,
to.
you guys are learning
I'm
together.
like, I don't know how to do it either. Let's go figure it out. So I would say right now for us is more of a let's pull back and regroup and figure out how to operate this business on the independent space and really start leveraging our resources that we have from like the people that we met at the car rental show, really getting under their wing and learning how to really operate as like one of the big wigs that do have 1,000 cars in their fleet. And at the same time, also being able to show other people, because one thing I do believe in is that you don't have to be at the very end of your road to start teaching somebody else how to get from level 1 to level 2. And so I think we've learned so much from our experiences, and we still see people making these same mistakes that we were making that we want to really help. That's why I'm even on this podcast today, because I'm like, we've learned way too much to let other people make these same mistakes.
Yeah.
So I really want to share with other people, like if you're starting on Turo, how to do it the right way. Like how to, and then if you want to start navigating into the independent space, how to do that the right way. Like how to start off with a good foundation and not make the mistakes that we were making. Because if you do, then you're pretty much stabbing yourself in the foot. That's not even necessary because somebody else has already done it before. Like somebody's already made those mistakes for you to be able to bypass for yourself. So one thing I'm very big on now is really being able to reach back and help other people. That, like I said, we're a 10 out of 10 as far as operation, according to our operations manager on Turo. So I know we can teach that, and we can like showcase you the step-by-step process of how we built our systems in that aspect.
Yeah, let's go into that a little bit, because I know I was in very early on when you were literally holding our hands and walking us through the teaching, the education space.
Yeah.
Where are you with that now? What does that look like if someone wants to say, all right, I heard, Marlon dropped tons of game, and he seems like he's a very educated person in his space. How do I learn more, or how do I even learn from you?
So me and my dad rebuilt that entire program, because you took it. You were like one of the early adopters of it too. But we rebuilt it and actually made a module-based program where we teach you the step-by-step and all the critical information you need to know about how to operate that business from day one, as if you were starting with our knowledge, basically. Like if we were to take everything that we know and then start back over, that's how we would do it. And it's called the Turo formula.
Okay.
So we built out that program. It's a like I said, module-based program, DIY program. But accompanying with that, there's also a community group that I run now. So me and actually my business coach, we both co-run a community group that meets every single Monday.
That's dope.
And we talk about how to establish your operation, like not just operation, but also how to prepare your business to be fundable. And because if for anybody who's looking to make this a business model, you need to have funding, or you need to have some type of financial backing to really operate in the independent space at your highest capacity. Because during this phase, you're going to be learning a whole lot, and you're going to need different things that you just don't even know about yet. So as far as like, you're going to need different resources that you don't know that you don't know.
Yeah.
And so you need to have that financial backing to help back you up, especially when you're going to different financiers to get approvals for different lines of credit to buy more vehicles. So all of that's like critically important, and we just pretty much teach you and prepare you for all those things before you ever get into it. That's through the community group. We also have a Facebook community where you're able to ask questions all throughout the week. And then we also go live in there like every other Thursday just to continue to add value to the community and talk about like market updates and things that I'm seeing that's changing within the market.
And that's huge too. I know you're big on community and having that aspect where people can just tap in with you directly and you and your team as the market is shifting versus them trying to figure it out on their own. You know, exactly. Turo and hire cars probably not the same back in 2016, 17 where it is today. So having them tap in with you, and how can they find more information about that?
Yeah, so just go to theturoformula.com and you'll be able to access the actual program itself. And
that domain was available?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, theturoformula.com. That's dope.
I looked for a few of them, but yeah, I found that one. But I thought that was very, I guess, complimenting of like what we were doing because I don't know if you've ever watched SpongeBob before, but Plankton was always after something called the secret formula from Mr. Krabs. Yep. That's kind of where that name originated from because the reason that he was going after that secret formula wasn't just for the formula's sake, but because that was the secret ingredient to the success that he saw with the entire Krusty Krab. It's like it's on a funny level, but at the same time, that is what a formula is. That's the secret sauce that helps somebody operate their business successfully, or operate their business successfully on the show. But in the same thing in real life. You want to operate on Turo successfully. That's what the Turo formula is all about. So that's where that originates from.
I like it. So as we wrap up, is there anything that we missed or anything you want to touch on before we go?
I think we covered the gist of it all together. I think we understand about market research, understanding buying good deals, understanding understanding like the vision for like what's your exit strategy. All those different things are like critically important, but I would say our community, that's definitely a point of emphasis for me because that's what we needed back in the very beginning to be able to answer the questions that we had as we were coming through and really learning from the experience of others. I think that's like the most intangible thing you can do to save yourself a lot of money and headache is by learning what other people have gone through rather than having to experience it for yourself. So definitely want to really re-emphasize the community aspect because that one is like priceless in comparison to like what you would have to pay to learn those lessons on your own.
Listen, you're going to pay in two ways. You're going to pay in time or you're going to pay in money.
Yep.
Exactly. I don't have the time right now, so I'd rather pay in the money and skip the steps.
I'm going to say this too. When you pay in time, you still paying the money. You just paying by going through the lessons.
You're going to take longer to get there.
You're going to pay in money or you're going to pay in time and money.
There you go. So, well, how can the people find you? How can the people tap in with you if they want more information?
Most definitely. So like I said, you can go to theturoformula.com if you want to get the actual program itself. But if you want to just tap in with me and just learn more about like what I'm doing, you can tap in at Deuce Walls. That's DEUCEWALLS on all social media platforms.
Okay. And when you guys bringing the podcast back, put the podcast name up there too.
Money Monopolizers podcast as well. So definitely tap into our podcast. Me and business partner Alex, we've been going at it we actually had 150 episodes, and we plan on coming back this year.
There we go.
I would say just a sneak peek. We plan on coming back, but we've been working up on some things that we plan on like showcasing once we come back.
There we go. That's another episode of the More Than a Side Hustle podcast. It was just me today. Hope you guys got a lot of value today from Marlon and just the car rental space. I appreciate you guys tapping in. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review if you feel like this is a 5-star podcast, because I do. But we'll see you guys next week. Peace.